The wind came low and slow across the plains that evening, carrying the scent of dry sage and dust. The sun was slipping behind the mesas, burning the sky in shades of copper and blood. It was the kind of sunset that made even hard men stop and look, but Eli Carson wasn't the sort to stop for beauty anymore. He'd been riding since dawn, his horse lathered and tired, his canteen long dry. A week ago he'd buried his last partner up near Silver Creek after a gunfight that went bad. Since then, he'd had no reason to linger anywhere. Just one more nameless drifter heading nowhere in particular. The town of Willow Bend appeared out of the heat haze like a ghost, a handful of weathered buildings, a church steeple, and the faint promise of water. He figured he'd find a drink, a meal, maybe a bed for the night. But fate, as it often did, had other plans. A mile outside town stood a lonely cabin, small and gray against the golden fields. Smoke rose from the chimney, thin and pale against the sky. Eli noticed it as he rode past, not because it looked welcoming, but because it looked alive. He was halfway past when he heard it, a sound so faint he almost thought it was the wind. A cry. A child's cry. He pulled the reins, listening. There it was again, sharp, scared, desperate. He kicked his horse and rode toward it. The cabin door was half open, banging softly in the wind. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of smoke and fear. A little girl stood near the hearth, her small hands pressed against her face. The fire had jumped from the stove to the old curtains, licking up the wall like a living thing. Without thinking, Eli was off his horse and through the door. He grabbed a blanket, smothered the flames, coughed through the smoke, and threw open the window to let the air clear. When it was done, he turned and saw her, the girl, maybe 6 years old, staring up at him with tear-streaked cheeks and eyes too wide for her tiny face. "You hurt, kid?" he asked, rough but gentle. She shook her head. "Mama's outside. She fell." Eli went cold. "Where?" She pointed toward the back. He ran out, boots crunching the dry dirt, and found the woman a few yards away, collapsed near a water barrel. Her hair was dark, tangled, her dress torn where she tried to haul the bucket. Her breathing was shallow, her skin hot with fever. He knelt beside her. "Ma'am." Her eyes fluttered open, hazel, full of pain and confusion. "The fire," she whispered. "It's out," he said. "You're safe now." He carried her inside, laid her on the worn sofa, and told the little girl to fetch water. The child obeyed without a word, her tiny bare feet pattering on the wooden floor. Eli found some herbs and cloths, did what he could to bring down the fever. He wasn't a doctor, but life on the trail had taught him more about wounds and sickness than he cared to know. By the time the woman stirred again, the light outside had faded into deep blue. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "Name's Eli Carson," he said. "Just passing through. You were in trouble." She tried to sit, winced, and fell back. "I was fetching water. The heat. I must have fainted." "You're lucky your girl cried out when she did," Eli said quietly. The woman looked toward her daughter, who was now curled up on a chair, watching them both. A faint smile touched her lips. "That's Clara. She's all I got left." Eli nodded. "You've got spirit, miss. Not many keep a home this far from town." "I didn't have much choice," she said softly. "My husband built this place. Died last winter. I've been trying to hold it together since." Eli said nothing. He knew what it was to lose everything, to keep walking when there was nothing left to walk toward. Later that night, as the wind moaned against the windows, Eli sat by the dying fire. The woman slept fitfully on the couch, her face pale but peaceful now. Clara sat near him, hugging her knees. "Thank you, mister," she said finally. He looked over. "For what?" "For saving Mama. And the house. I thought maybe the angels were taking her." Eli's throat tightened. "She's strong, kid. She'll be fine." Clara studied him a long time, eyes curious, innocent. "You don't have a family?" He shook his head. "Not anymore." "Neither do we," she said simply. Then, after a pause that felt too long for such a small voice, she added, "Uncle, will you marry my mama?" The words hung in the air, soft, pure, devastating. Eli stared at her, caught off guard. "What makes you say that, little one?" She shrugged, serious as only a child can be. "Mama cries at night. She thinks I don't hear, but I do. I asked God to send somebody to help us. Then you came." Eli didn't know what to say. The fire popped. Outside, the coyotes began their lonely songs. He finally managed, "I think God just wanted me to put out a fire, that's all." Clara leaned closer, whispering as if afraid to break a spell. "Mama says good men don't stay. Please be the one who stays." Then she curled up and fell asleep beside the hearth, the flames painting her small face gold. Eli sat there for a long time, staring into the embers, his heart heavy with something he hadn't felt in years, belonging. By dawn, the fever had broken. When the woman woke, the air was cool and clean, and the smell of fresh coffee filled the room. Eli was already up, fixing the door that had nearly come off its hinges. "You didn't have to stay," she said softly. "I don't leave a job half done," he replied. She studied him, the worn hat, the unshaven jaw, the quiet steadiness in his eyes. There was something guarded there, something wounded but kind. "Clara told me what she said to you," she murmured. "I'm sorry. She's just a child." Eli gave a faint smile. "Kids see things we forget how to look for." The woman looked away, embarrassed. "I didn't even ask where you're headed." "Nowhere special," he said. "Just riding." "Then maybe," she hesitated, "maybe you could stay for breakfast. I owe you at least that much." Eli nodded once. "I'd like that." And for the first time in a long while, he meant it. The morning came soft and gold over the plains, the kind of light that made the world look gentler than it really was. Dew clung to the long grass, and the smoke from the cabin chimney curled upward in lazy spirals. Eli Carson stood outside, rolling his shoulders as the sun warmed his back. His horse grazed nearby, tail flicking at flies. Inside, he could hear Clara's laughter, high, bright, like birdsong. For a moment, it didn't sound like a house touched by sorrow. He'd planned to leave before dawn. He'd even saddled up. But something, maybe that small voice from last night, had kept him from riding off. The door opened, and Clara came skipping out barefoot, carrying a tin cup with both hands. "Mama says thank you for fixing the door," she said proudly. "And for the firewood. She made biscuits, real ones." Eli smiled faintly. "That's so. Well, I guess I can't turn down a biscuit." Inside, the widow, Mary Evans, she told him, was standing near the stove, her hair tied back, cheeks still pale from her fever. She moved carefully, but there was strength in the way she stood. "You should be resting," Eli said. "I've rested enough," she replied, offering him a cup of coffee. "I don't take kindly to lying idle when there's work to be done." He accepted the cup. "You sound like somebody who's been fighting the world on her own for a while." Mary gave a faint smile. "The world doesn't care much who wins the fight, Mr. Carson. It just keeps spinning." For a while, they ate in silence, the kind that wasn't awkward, just full of things that didn't need saying. Clara chattered about her garden, her goat, the doll she'd made from an old flour sack. Eli listened, half smiling, the way a man listens when he's remembering what peace sounds like. When breakfast was done, he stood and reached for his hat. "You've got a fine place here. Needs a little fixing, but it's worth holding on to." Mary's eyes darkened. "The bank doesn't think so. They've been after me since my husband died. Said they'll take the land if I don't make the next payment." Eli paused. "You got anyone to help?" She shook her head. "No one left. Folks in town keep their distance. A woman alone, they whisper more than they lend a hand." He looked toward the fields, dry and hard, but not hopeless. "If you've got seed, I can help you plant. Owe you that much for breakfast." Mary studied him a long moment, trying to read the truth in his weathered face. Then she nodded. "If you're sure." He was. By noon, the sun was fierce. Eli worked shirtless in the field, his back glistening with sweat, muscles moving like the steady rhythm of a plow horse. Clara followed him with a bucket of water, proud to be his assistant. Mary watched from the porch, her heart pulling in two directions, gratitude and fear. She'd known men like him before, wanderers, kind for a while, but gone when the wind changed. Yet there was something different in Eli's silence, in the careful way he spoke to her daughter, never harsh, never hurried. That evening, after the fields were done, Eli mended the roof where the rain had leaked through. When the last board was nailed, the sun was dipping low again, painting the sky with fire. "Thank you," Mary said quietly, bringing him water. "You've done more in one day than I've managed in weeks." Eli nodded. "Just needed fixing. That's all." She hesitated. "You could stay a while, until the harvest, maybe. I could pay you a little, once I sell the grain." He looked at her, then away. "I don't take pay from folks who need it worse than I do." "Then stay for supper," she said. "That's payment enough." He almost said no, but Clara's hopeful face decided it for him. Supper was stew and cornbread, simple but warm. Afterward, Clara brought out a small wooden box filled with treasures, a button, a feather, a smooth stone shaped like a heart. "This one's for you," she said, handing Eli the stone. He frowned slightly. "You sure?" She nodded solemnly. "It's lucky. You keep it, you'll stay safe." Mary smiled. "She gives those only to people she likes." Eli held the stone for a long moment, feeling its smooth edges. "Then I'll guard it well." When Clara went to bed, the house fell quiet. The firelight danced on the walls, soft and golden. Mary sat by the window, sewing, while Eli smoked by the door. "You said you buried your partner," she said gently. "Was he family?" Eli exhaled slow. "Closest thing I had. We rode together 10 years. Tried to make an honest living once, drove cattle, hauled freight. But trouble finds men like us easy. He got caught in it last week. I walked away. He didn't." Mary looked down at her hands. "You blame yourself." "Doesn't change a thing," he said. "No," she agreed. "But it makes a man lonely." Their eyes met, just a glance, but it felt like the air shifted. Outside, the wind rose, brushing through the grass like a whisper. Inside, something unspoken began to grow, fragile as a promise, strong as need. The days passed slow and steady. Eli stayed, at first to help with the fields, then because leaving didn't feel right anymore. He taught Clara how to whittle, fixed the old fence, and rode into town once a week for supplies. Folks stared when they saw him, the stranger with the widow and her child, but no one dared speak against him. At night, he'd sit by the porch with Mary, watching the stars burn bright over the open land. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they didn't. It didn't matter. One night she said softly, "You've changed this place, Eli. It feels alive again." He smiled, looking at her, really looking. Maybe it was waiting for someone to stop running. She didn't answer, but he saw the shimmer of tears she tried to hide. Then Clara's small voice came from the doorway. "Mama, can Eli stay forever?" Mary blushed. "Clara." Eli chuckled, low and rough. "That's up to your mama, little one." Clara yawned. "God sent you, I think. I told him we needed somebody brave." Mary's heart twisted. She looked at Eli, the man who'd walked out of the desert like an answer to a prayer she'd never dared to say. When Clara went back to bed, Eli rose to leave, hat in hand. "I should turn in. Early start tomorrow." Mary stood too. "Eli." He turned. "Whatever happens, thank you. For everything." He stepped closer, the space between them charged and fragile. "You don't owe me thanks, Mary." But she shook her head, eyes bright. "You gave us more than help. You gave us hope." For a long moment, neither moved. Then Eli touched the brim of his hat and walked out into the starlit night. At dawn, Clara woke to find his saddle gone from the porch. She ran outside, calling his name, but the plains were empty. Mary stood in the doorway, heart sinking. She'd known he would leave. Men like him always did. But the loss hit harder than she expected. Then, near the well, she saw it, a small, smooth stone lying atop a folded note. The note read, "You and Clara don't need saving. You just needed someone to remind you how strong you already are. But if ever the fire burns too high, look west. You'll find me." Tears blurred her vision as the wind lifted the edges of the paper. Clara picked up the stone, clutching it to her chest. "He'll come back, Mama. I know he will." Mary smiled through her tears. "Maybe, sweetheart. Maybe." She looked out across the wide, golden plains, and for the first time since her husband's death, she felt something stir deep in her chest. Not sorrow. Hope.